Hey YouTube, gonna work on this Coleman Powermate air compressor. Bought it about 20 years ago. It says 5 horsepower, 20 gallon. There's no way this is a 5 horsepower electric motor. 1 or 2 at best. And I do already have it taken apart. I'll reverse it and show you how to put it together. But it wasn't going over 40 psi, and it would just continually run. And the unloader valve was leaking. So I thought, let's get a new regulator. Here's the old one. It was leaking out this unloader valve. For 20 bucks, I put a new regulator on it. Still leaked out of the unloader valve. Did a little more research, and they say it could be the check valve. So I put a new check valve in it. I think it was $12. And that stopped the unloader valve from leaking. So sure enough, the check valve was bad, not the on-off switch here, or the pressure switch. So, but it still wasn't going over 40 psi. So I took the head off the compressor. This is the piston right here. I've got the cylinder off too, and the piston ring. I did order a new one while I have it apart. Might as well put a new cylinder and piston ring in. This was less than $20 too. But the problem is the reed valve in the head. So I pulled this head off, and this reed valve was screwed in here, and this metal plate was on top of it. So when I took the 2 screws off, the reed valve, one of it is broken off. So I searched and I searched and I searched, and nobody sells this reed valve anymore. I couldn't find it anyway, and some places seem to be selling the whole head assembly, although I don't know if they're available anymore for, like, I don't know, $150, and this old air compressor is not worth that. So I just went looking for generic reed valves, and I found this one. And it's off of I got it from a boat store. It's off a Mercury boat engine, and it's close enough that I think it's going to work. So what I'll do is I will reverse the procedure. I will put everything back together, and that way you have an idea. But I think this was, well, there were 2 problems with this. One was the check valve causing the unloader to leak, but that wasn't the reason why this wasn't going up to 40 psi. The reason it wasn't going up to 40 psi is because this reed valve in the head broke off, and it was just leaking air right there at the cylinder. So I'll put a new reed valve in, I'll put the new cylinder and piston ring in, put this thing back together, and see if we got a compressor that might last another 20 years. All right, I measured the thickness of both of these reed valves, the old one and the new one, and unbelievably, they're both 8/1000 thick. And more unbelievably is the screw holes line up, and the reeds cover all 3 holes. So I'm going to put this reed valve back on like that, and this thick metal cover goes over top of that with 2 screws holding it, and then put the cylinder in the gasket on the piston. All right, the cylinder's the wrong cylinder. It's taller and a millimeter maybe narrower. So back to the drawing board on the cylinder, but I did get the reed valve in, and it just fits perfectly. So I could put the old cylinder back in, but I'm going to go see if I can at least get the piston ring for it. This is the piston ring. This is the piston with the air compressor, and it fits fairly snugly into the cylinder. 76 millimeters. So I bought this one that advertises 76 millimeters, but it's like 75 and a half. It fits too loose. I bought this one that's 76, but it doesn't really fit the piston well. It doesn't have the lip on it. So I can't find just a piston ring, which I think is all I need. I probably don't even need it, but I went ahead and ordered a new cylinder, piston, and piston ring. It was about $150, but you know, while I've got this thing apart, it's 20 years old. I think it'll run like new with a new piston and ring and cylinder and pressure regulator, so it should be in a couple of days. I ordered it. All right, the new piston and cylinder kit came in from Arkansas Outdoors. I'll post a link. The cheapest place I could find it, about $150. And we'll go ahead and put this in now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop this piston into the cylinder this way because of the there we go, because of the shape of this piston ring. And I will very carefully seat that down in there, you know, a little bit at a time, and then I'll remove the old one, and then I'll drop this one in and then tighten up the screw. Even though this isn't the reason I was working on this compressor, I thought I'd replace this while I had it apart, and I'm glad I did, because this new one is a really tight fit, whereas the old one, I can actually see light shining through around this, between the cylinder and the piston ring in some places. So this is going to make it last a long time. I'm glad I'm just doing this entire overhaul. It'll last another 20 years. The bottom of the connecting rod wraps around this bearing, and the question is, should I replace this bearing? And it just feels solid. I mean, it's very tight. It rolls nicely. I'm not going to do it. It's easy to get to if I needed to, but I'm just going to drop this in. Put it on. I'll need two hands to do that, but then I'll tighten the screw up. One thing I'm going to do, the screw that holds the bottom of the connecting rod, the new one came with a Phillips head. The old one was a Torx, so I'm going to use the old one. It's a little shorter, but it spans the entire length. This seems a little beefier, but I'm still going to use the old one. I think you got more control with the Torx head. Okay, next step, the cylinder head goes back on with the new reed valve we installed. And I will put the new gasket on right here. The old one looks good, but, and this connector goes to the air hose right there. And then the 6 bolts go back in. So we'll go ahead and do that step. All right, I just have the head set in place, and this gasket, this is the old one, that went in here. I just held my fingers on 2 corners when I put this in place, and then I carefully checked to make sure that it was seated properly. Then I put this gasket back in place. The kit did not come with a new one of these, but this one is still pliable and looks good. Then this cover goes on top here, And then I'll evenly torque these 6 bolts and torque this head back down. Head bolts all tightened evenly, a little bit at a time. Now I'll hook up the air hose. Okay, everything's hooked up. The only thing I see left is the cover. And I think I'll test it before I put the cover on. So here goes. All right, fixed. So we've got a new regulator, new piston rings, new check valve. Things should be good to go. The regulator I bought was set too high. So this is the cut in pressure. This is the cut out pressure. You back them off counterclockwise to lower the pressure, and you spin them clockwise to raise the pressure on both of those. So I'm going to go ahead and set those. But I think I've got another 20 years out of this Powermate. The way I used it, it lasted 20 years before, and it should last 20 years again. So hope this helps. I'll put a link to the list of parts I used. Thanks for watching.